Everybody, we are online. We are back. Those of you who did not know, we were not out here the past couple of weeks because of Passover, Pesach. And if you are online, give me a buzz so I know you're there. And we will continue with our exciting series on the Sefer Bereshit, the book of Genesis. And we are up to today, we're continuing with the story of the birth of Yitzchak, which we got up to last time. If you remember last time, we had the story of how Sarah was taken again by Avimelech. Sarah was taken one time by Pharaoh. And what happened was, okay. I'm getting a message from Dan that we are not recording online. Hey, Jay. Okay. So I got a message from Dan that we're not online. So, Jay, would you mind maybe reaching out? Maybe you are now. Okay, I see Cole Younger is there. Welcome, Cole, from Seattle. So maybe we are online now. Okay, very good. All right, so good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Jay. Welcome, Cole, and everyone else who will find their way to this discussion. Okay, so we're up to going through a little bit the story of now shifting from the stories of Abraham and Sarah to the next generation, which is going to be Isaac, Yitzchak, and Rivka. Okay, so fine. So now, just to go back a little bit, we talked about how Sarah was a beautiful person, beautiful woman, beautiful. And unfortunately, when Avram went to certain places, they saw her, and as was the custom in those days, they would just grab a beautiful woman and take her. So Avimelech, who was the king of the Philistines, the Plishtim, when Avraham came to his town, he took Sarah. And the whole thing happened. All of his orifices got clogged up in his whole house. He knew something was going on. And then he had a dream, and God said to him, return the woman. It is not Abraham's sister, as they sort of indicated, but rather it is his wife. Okay, that's what happened. And I'm only reviewing this because it's something that's going to be interesting we'll get to afterwards. Now, I want to have a side point about the Philistines a second. Get a little bit political, but it's history, so we need to know it. The Philistines were an ancient people. They don't exist anymore. The Philistines worshipped a god that was half fish, half human, okay, called Dagon. It appears in the stories of the Tanakh and the Bible. The stories of the Philistines. They were an ancient people. They don't exist anymore. And just to understand a little history people need to know. So when the Romans conquered Israel, they called it Palestine as a sort of a dig to the Jews, because the Philistines were always their ancient enemy. Many problems with the Philistines and afterwards with Samson, we know the stories. So that was the Philistines. The Philistines do not exist anymore. They were an ancient people. They don't exist. And the Romans called Palestine, and they named it Israel Palestine, as sort of a dig to the Jewish people. And just historically, it's maybe political, but it's obvious if you learn anything. The Arabs that live in Israel have nothing to do with the Philistines, the Palestinians, so to speak, the Philistines of ancient. It's completely different people. It's nothing to do one with the other. The Arabs that live in land of Israel were Arabs that were living in different places and in Syria and Jordan, and the land of Israel was very desolate. There were many people that were traveling through, and there were people living there. But it's nothing to do with the ancient Philistines. That nation is already does not exist. Okay, so now, who do we got there? We have hello from Eastern Central Pennsylvania. Good. Welcome, good to have you. Okay, so now, Sarah, and this is a very important lesson, we mentioned this last time also. Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, says, okay, I'm going to give, the wife back to Abraham, but what's going to happen? I'm having these problems now. All of his orifices were closed, different things. They couldn't give birth. They couldn't go to the bathroom, whatever it was. And Hashem said, give the woman back. The man's a prophet. He is a prophet, and he'll know that you didn't touch her. Nothing happened. And when he gives his wife, when Avimelech gives back Sarah to Abraham, Abraham prays for Avimelech. Prays for them that they should open their orifices, be able to give birth again, be able to procreate. And it says, we learn a very beautiful principle from the Talmud. Says, if somebody needs something, and I have a friend who needs it, and I pray for them, then you'll be answered first. Now, you can't do it as a trick. You can't do it, pray for yourself, by praying for them, so you'll get it first. That won't work. But the point is, when a person gets out of themselves and thinks about others' needs, so then that's a tremendous opening and a tremendous gateway for blessing. So what happened was, Abraham prayed for Avimelech and his household, and at the same time, Sarah was answered, and she conceived. And we talked about last time how Isaac was born. Now, after a period of time, Hashem comes to test Abraham, and that's what we're up to right now. This is a very difficult portion in the Torah. Okay? Someone there, I am a former Catholic, born again Christian, and in my 60s a Noahide. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. You tell me your name, I'd be happy to hear. I'm not sure what born again Christian and Noahide mean. I don't know how the two go together, but I would like to hear. Maybe we'll discuss that in a few moments. So, okay, let's get back to our story. And whoever your name is there, please, Tony. Tony. You could write. Now I'll try to answer you, because born again Christian and Noahide are not really the same. Are not all the same process. So if you have any questions, you could private message me, or I can answer you online if that works out. Okay, now up to a very difficult story, the test of Abraham. And the test is a very strange thing, because what does it mean God tests people? This was the ultimate test. God tested Abraham, and he tells him to bring his son, his beloved son Yitzchak, Isaac, who he's waited for his whole life, who was a miraculous birth at age 190 for Sarah, and a miraculous birth of the continuation of this revolution of a belief in one God and goodness and righteousness in the world, which had been forgotten in the world. The continuity has been given to Abraham in a miraculous way. Abraham and Sarah have this child in their old age, Isaac, Yitzchak. And now God tests Abraham, and he tells him to bring him as an offering. Okay? Now, this is a very, very deep topic, and there's so many different levels to it. We're going to take one level today. We'll explain it, and I'll just give you a little backdrop and background to understand how to see different levels of these ideas. So, first, what does it mean to test? God knows the conclusion. So what does it mean he tests you? Like he doesn't know you, how you're going to do? A teacher tests you because maybe you don't know the material. What does it mean God tests someone? So let me explain the Hebrew word for test. It's called nisayon. A nisayon, and it's from the root of the word nes. Nes means a banner. Okay, a banner that you hold up. And the concept is that there is greatness that's latent in people, and it's only through going through certain situations that they could bring out their greatness. And that was the test of Abraham. The Nisayon, it's like God knew he could be successful, he would be successful. But this was to bring out the banner of Abraham, that Abraham's greatness could be expressed in the world. And therefore God tells him to bring his son as an offering. Okay, now that is obviously beyond difficult for any human being, and certainly in this case. Because in this case, there's a certain level of selflessness, and I want to be clear about this. There have been many righteous Jewish people that have given their lives up to sanctify God's name. Today's Yom HaShoah, they have remembrance. My own family were killed in Auschwitz. My mother's parents and her siblings, except for two that survived, were all killed in Auschwitz. And they gave their lives up, and they understood, and that's what it was. So Abraham, there's a normal sense that a person has of something that's valuable to them, and sometimes for a greater idea, they'll sacrifice their lives. And many righteous people have done that. So Abraham's test was that, but it was much, much greater. You see, because Abraham's whole thing was, his mission in the world was to bring godliness into the world. And Isaac now represented that continuity. For him to end that was not only the end of himself, it was apparently the end of the most valuable thing to him, which was to bring God into the world. Okay, so God tells him to go and to offer, bring the son as an offering. And now in the process, first of all, how old is people don't realize how old Isaac is. People think Isaac is a little kid. He's not. He's 37 years old. He's not a little kid. Okay. Now in the beginning, it's true he didn't know exactly what was happening. Okay. They set out together to the place. Okay, they don't know what the place is. God says, go to the place I will show you, the mountain I will show you. But he doesn't tell him where it is, but he goes. That mountain he's going to go to is Jerusalem, the place where he's going to bring Isaac as an offering. Is the Holy of Holies, is the spot on the Temple Mount where the temple stood, where the Holy of Holies was, where the high priest of Israel would go in once a year to that one spot. And that would be the centerpiece of the world. Okay, that's where he offers Isaac up. That's the same place where Jacob's gonna have his dream of the ladder. That's the place where we call in the mystical writings called the place where the heavens kiss the earth. That's the meeting point. That's the joint point between the physical and the spiritual realm. That's where God's house was and will be. Okay, now, so he goes. Now, he takes along two assistants with him. One is his servant Eliezer, who had become a very righteous person. Eliezer was not just a servant, he was a great man. He taught Torah. He taught Abraham's Torah. Commentaries say it's called Damesek. Damesek means servant, it can be from Damascus, but it also means Dola Mashke Mitosh Rabo. He draws out the teachings of his teacher, it's a conjugation of a word, and he gives it to people. He took Abraham's Torah and he explained it to people, so he was a very great person. He took Eliezer, and he also took his other son Yishmael. That's fascinating, because Yishmael, if you remember him before, was kicked out. Now he's brought back at this point. He's sort of this many years later, and now he's reconnected, and he goes with them to this place that God has told him. But now at this point, still no one knows what's going on except for Abraham. Abraham has the sword, the knife, and he has the wood and the snap. And then at a certain point, he sees a place in the distance. And it says he sees like a cloud that's coming out from the heavens tied to this place. And he looks at Isaac and he says, do you see what I see? And he says, yes. He looks at Eliezer and Yishmael and says, do you see anything over there? They say, no, we see nothing. Just desert, nothing. So Abraham understands that means that this is not a vision for them. It's a vision for him and Isaac. And he says, you guys stay here, leave the donkeys there, you guys stay here. We're going to go and we're going to serve God, bow to God, and we'll come back. He says, we'll come back. He didn't know, prophetically, he was also told this. Now, as they're going together, at a certain point, it says that Isaac says to Abraham, he says, listen, you got the knife and you got the wood, and where's the offering? And that's when Abraham tells him. He says, listen, if God wants to show us an animal, he will, but it looks like it's going to be you. And at that point, Isaac goes willingly. Okay, you have to understand. They go willingly. And even when they got there, it says that Isaac said to Abraham, tie me down very tight, because maybe I'll be afraid when the knife comes to me and I'll die. So tie me down tight so I don't move and then ruin the offering. Now, this is so bizarre. You understand something here? Abraham spent his whole life fighting against these people. There were people who would bring human sacrifices, And now God tells him to bring Isaac? His whole life was fighting against this. It's mind-boggling. Okay? I have some questions here. Okay, so Tony asks this right thing. That does he not ask? Right. Very good. Okay, very good. You guys are asking great. That's really true, because this was very, as I was saying, it's very atypical in the sense that from a Jewish perspective, asking questions is central to what we're doing here, and you see that throughout. How does Abraham not say anything? And it's fascinating because he only says it at the end, and I want to explain this a little bit. So let's go through the story, and then I'm gonna deal with Tony's question because it's correct. This is not what's done, and more so because this whole thing is completely what Abraham has been fighting against his whole life. This test is just beyond what he can understand, because he could say to God, "Wait, you told me never to do this. This is what you commanded me to do." Okay, let's understand. So let me just get the story first, then we'll go through. So now what happens is Abraham gets there with Isaac, and he goes to offer him. And an angel calls out from the heavens. God sends an angel and says, "Don't touch the child." Okay? Abraham says, "What do you mean? You told me to bring him up as an offering." So I said to bring him up. You brought him up. Now take him down. Okay. Now, at that point, Abraham is like, this is the moment. This is like the pinnacle of a test possible. Because as we said before, Abraham is the person that is all about giving. And this is exactly the opposite. This is undoing his whole philosophy of life. This is killing his only son. This is like unimaginable. Now, I want to actually deal with the point that Tony's brought up. Because how do we understand this? Let's talk about the idea of what people call in the world faith. Okay? And I have to, unfortunately, we're speaking in English, but the holy language is Hebrew. And Hebrew is a very different language, and words are affected by the sounds of what the concepts we have. There really isn't the concept of faith in the same way from a Jewish perspective as it is said in English. Let me explain. The idea of blind faith, believing something, no matter how illogical it is, being that I must believe it more, that's completely a contrary idea to a Jewish idea. We don't believe in that. Okay? The Jews were not to do what pagans did. Right. Yeah, that's right. Of course not. Jews didn't do what pagans did. They did the opposite. So hold on, Tony. Just go slow. So let's understand here. So what is now the idea of faith? What does that mean? So what they would call blind faith, which means that, okay, the more illogical it is, the more I must believe it, that is not what we're talking about. That is not at all what a person should be doing. Because God can't give you a mind that functions in a certain way and yet tell you that everything that you see is exactly the opposite. That wouldn't make any sense. How could you build me in a way that everything that I would perceive would be completely opposite? That's not what it works. So the word in Hebrew for what they call faith in English is called emunah. Emunah is from the word amen, right? Amen, right, is the word amen. It's the word emunah. Say English faith. But let me explain what that means a little bit. The way you spell the word amen, or the word emunah, belief, faith, is aleph, which is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. That's the mind. Okay, that's the point when it's something I understand. So I have to look at the world and something makes sense. Okay? The second letter of the word amen is the mem, which is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Okay? So the concept is, it starts out with what I apply my logic to and I understand. Then I bring that down into my heart, the middle point, okay, the middle point of the person. when you have things you believe, you don't necessarily always feel them. If we did, then a lot of things, problems we had would be solved. When a person goes and takes the concepts and they make them real, they bring them into their heart, that's the first process in the quality of what we call belief. Now, the last letter is what's called the nun. The nun is a long line. It actually means, in Hebrew, grandson, nun, nin. And it means the extension, bringing something out into fruition. The Hebrew word to believe is also the word amen, means to train. You train yourself. There's things that you see in your logic, and you feel them, and you express them. And therefore, the approach is not at all blind faith. That's completely contrary to anything we'll say. However, is there ever a point where a person knows something in their head, but there's still a point they have to jump and go beyond what they know? The answer is yes. The answer is you do that every single day. Okay? Because let me prove that to you. How does that work? You get on an airplane. Do you go and knock on the door of the cockpit and say, hey, can I see your license? You know how to drive this plane? You know how to fly it? You don't. Why? Because you assume that there's FAA requirements and there's this and there's that, and probably the guy who's flying the plane knows how to do it. Even though you might have seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, and you know that someone got away without doing it, but you assume. How do you know there'll be gravity in another 15 minutes from now? You don't. Because gravity has function. You don't know if it's going to keep functioning. There's no proof of that. You know that's what's been. And therefore, much of our lives, we use logic, and there's a certain place that we jump off, and from the logic, we extend it past something we might not be able to see. That's the place. So when I practice what's called emunah, a belief, it's not rooted in anything. It's rooted completely in what I understand and what I know my mind tells me is true. And I practice that in my heart and I live that way. And then when there's a point that goes beyond that, that's where the emunah, the practice of the knowledge that I've gotten into myself, takes beyond even what I can understand. So Abraham had developed a relationship with God. He understood. He connected the experience. He knew everything that God was saying to him. He knew all of these things. And therefore, this test was the point where a person would say, I know everything you're saying, God, and I've had this tremendously close relationship, and I understand, and you're omnipotent, and you are all beneficent, I understand all that, and you're telling me to do this anyway, and my logic shuts down at a certain point, but because I built that, he can go beyond. And that's why it's a fascinating thing. You see in the Talmud that Abraham asked the questions that Tony was saying only after the incident. After the incident, Abraham said, okay, now God, let me ask you, because you told me before Isaac was going to be the continuation of the Jewish people, and then you told me to offer him, now you tell me to take him down, what's going on? And God said, I told you, I didn't say offer him as a sacrifice, I said bring him up. You elevated, you raised him up, you did that experience, you've succeeded in that, and now you could take him down. But the question that Abraham understood, he says, there's a certain point where sometimes in life, there's a jump. And that jump is not based on nothing. That jump is based on what you do know to extend you to past places that you might not be able to reach in your normal state of understanding. Okay, that's the idea. I'll take some questions on that. People ask if belief in God, I always say no. I know there's God. Well, Cole, that's very good. That's very good you could say that. You know, it's a very amazing thing you're saying. You know, Maimonides discusses the commandment. The commandment says is to know God. And you know, he wrote it, Maimonides wrote various books. One of his books was written in Arabic, actually, and the translation is a big discussion if he meant to believe or to know. But there is a commandment in the Torah to know God. Yes. But that means that you have practiced so much that something is experientially true to you that you know it. It doesn't always come in the first step. That's practice and that's work. That's seeing God in your life. And when Abraham did that, he was able to do a test that was where his mind couldn't go anymore. He was able to say, okay, I go past that. And by the way, just think about it a second. Everyone here has gone to a doctor. You go to a doctor, and if you know your doctor is good, at a certain point when he says to you, do this, you might not know all the medicine, but if you know he's been a great doctor, then you say, okay, he knows what he's talking about. How much more so if you know God, then Abraham was able to make this jump. Okay, very good, very good. I believe this is innate within us. Okay. Innate. I think what you mean by the fact that it's innate in us means to believe. I don't know. It means it's certainly there. All the good qualities, all of the, this is a very deep point, but reality is that there's a famous question people always will say. If a person wasn't educated on what's right and wrong, can you hold them accountable? And that's a big question today in the world. Person wasn't. Now, in a certain sense, I'm not their judge. You are in terms of your country and your laws of the country. How God judges someone who wasn't educated, what's right and wrong, that's God's call. Obviously, we have to do what we do as a society and have the rules of society. But there's a certain place that a person does know, because we have a soul. We do know, we have a barometer of what's right and wrong. We do know. But what happens is we cover it over with stuff. And that's why sometimes it's a scary thing. If you ever see like a criminal's face, it's very scary because the soul has been so covered up that they're disconnected from themselves. When a person's connected to themselves, they could tune in to certain truths that people should know. That should be innate. That is correct. Okay. Now, I just want to give you just one more thing about the Abraham story right now. So what we see over here is this was a tremendous test. It brought out Abraham's relationship with God. In the text, it says, now I know you have awe of God, which is a fascinating thing because Abraham, we said before, was the giver. His trait was love, was giving, was expansion. And all of his 10 tests, which culminate in this test, is now the test that he says, now you have awe of God because now I've told you to do all these difficult things that for you, they don't go. He had to leave his old father, he had to kick out his son. Now he has to go into potentially offer his own son up. So at that point, Abraham reaches the pinnacle of who he is. And that's why if you look at an amazing thing in the text, it says, the angel calls him and says, Avraham, Abraham. And the Talmud tells us, the Midrash tells us, that the angel said, Abraham, why Abraham 2 times? Because the Abraham below in this world now matches the potential Abraham that's in the heavens. Meaning that every person has what they are supposed to become. Okay? Abraham at this juncture of his life completes it. He completes it. Now I want to just give you a couple other things here. I have some other questions here. He was in Atlanta, Georgia. Yes, I am. Okay, very good. All right, any questions on what we said? I want to just flesh out just a few things here at relevant to our lives. And please feel free, because in this session we're going to be talking as we usually do. We will be starting hopefully next week to be giving short recorded videos, but this one is really to hear people and to be able to talk with them. Okay. No hide world. Okay. Now. So I want to say a couple of things about this test because there's a very deep midrash. Midrash is the oral explanation of the Torah that was passed down from God to Moses, and we have the explanation of what things happen. Some it's codified in the Talmud, some it's codified in the Midrash. So the Midrash talks about that the force of negativity was sort of appearing to Abraham. And it appeared to him in different ways. First, it appeared to him as a scholar. It said, listen, what are you doing? You can't do this. God said this is forbidden. You fought your whole life against it. You're crazy old man. So sometimes in life you have certain challenges and you think, well, I can't do this for this and this reason. But then is an amazing thing. It says, the Midrash says, the angel said to him at one point, says, listen, once he saw Abraham was not going to be convinced of not to do this. It happens in our mind very often. In our mind, we have a part of us that is called in mystical writing called the Yetzer Hara, the force that gives us the challenge to go and to resist. Sometimes you get pushed to not to do something. Abraham tells himself, or this force has brought, that he says to him, listen, no, I'm doing this. So it says that this force of negativity communicates somehow to Abraham and says to him, listen, I got to tell you something. I heard from behind the pargat, from behind the curtain, that don't worry, God's going to tell you when you get there not to sacrifice him. So it says that Abraham says to him, he says, listen, well, okay, that's the punishment of liars. You don't believe me if they would tell the truth. I don't believe you. Now, what was that? What was that statement? What does that mean? Why would this force tell him, or this conscious, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, it's a horror, however it was, this force of negativity would say to him, don't worry, it's not going to happen. And the answer is because the test of Abraham happens on many, many levels. It happens on one level when you want to do the right thing. You sometimes rationalize, no, it's not right, it's wrong. And then you can take your whole air out of it and say, well, it's going to be this way anyway. All of those tests Abraham had. He had the pinnacle of the challenge of doing this as the right thing because God said. And he was successful. And that's why this moment is really a turning point in history. That's why we mentioned this on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the holidays, the days of judgment. We always refer to this because this was a seminal moment in the world when Abraham was able to do this. Okay, very good. Okay, good. So keeping to rolling on now. Now, the tests actually, in a certain sense, continues with Abraham. Because what happens? It says that after Abraham takes Isaac down, and he does not bring him as an offering, it says that the Satan, the force of negativity, however it became unfolded in the world, Sarah hears that Abraham has brought their beloved son up as an offering. Okay? Now, there is a great question on what happened at which moment. But one thing we do know for sure is that when she heard the news that he was almost offered, and he wasn't, her soul flies out. She dies. And she literally died. She died then. Now, the question is, why did she die? Did she die of, is it a heart attack? Was it fear? Was it excitement? Was it happiness? And there's a lot of different versions and understandings of this. But I want to take a minute and explain how there can be different versions of it before I explain what it is. Okay? So, and this is really, really important, everybody. There are different levels of understanding the Torah. Okay, there are different levels. It's actually called in the mystical writings the Pardes. The Pardes means the mystical orchard, and it's an acronym. The Pardes is for the different levels. One is called the P, is the Pei. It's the Pshat, the basic reasoning. Then there's the Pardes, the Reish. That stands for the Remez, the hinted reality you can't always see in the simple understanding. Then there's a deeper level called the drush. The drush is what the sages tell us is a connection that you would never see otherwise. But God told Moses when he got the Torah what the deeper connections were, and he has that. And then pardes, the last letter in the word pardes, the mystical orchard, is the word sod, which means secret. That's the Kabbalistic level. The Torah is happening on many, 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 many levels. Now, you got to be careful with this because this does not mean, God forbid, it's a free-for-all. It means that when you look at reality, it's deep. If you've had an argument with any person in the world, if you're an open-minded person, you realize that they may have a side to this thing also. And sometimes they may say to you, hey, you were inconsiderate. And you say, no, I was thinking about you, but in one way you were, in one way you weren't. Even our emotions, there's so many different parts of us that when we have an experience, there could be a million emotions that are happening at one moment in anything that's very intense that are all happening. So there are deeper and deeper levels and multiple layers of understanding. Now, this can't be a free-for-all. Otherwise, we're in trouble. People make up their own stuff. That's why, and I have to tell you this. I'm a rabbi, and I'm sharing some of the thoughts here. But after something, we don't make up our own ideas. That's not how this works. It says there's a very deep teaching that we have, a tradition that God told Moses on Mount Sinai, and it's also the Midrash. It says in the future the nations of the world will claim they're the Jewish people. They will claim that. Now you say, wait a minute, that's happened. That's right, but it didn't happen, 4,000 years ago. So today people are saying we're the new Jewish people. But there's one thing that you could always know that contradicts that, which is they may have the written Torah, but they have no explanation of what it means. And when you read the written Torah, like, what does it mean? It's a very closed book. The deeper levels are the explanation of what is going on. And that is what's been passed down throughout the generations of the meanings of what happens here. So when Sarah hears that Isaac was brought as an offering, there's many different emotions. One emotion is her beloved son was going to die. Okay. One emotion is, what, was something wrong with him? What was there a reason why God didn't want him? But there's many, many emotions of what's going on. But be that as it may, what happens is her soul leaves her and she dies. Now imagine this. Imagine you're Abraham. You were just successful in the hardest test in history. You come back to your hometown and you find out because you went to offer your son on God's commandment, your wife died. That, I want to tell you, I can't say it's a greater test, but it is a mind-boggling test, because very often people could rise up to a challenge, and then when the pressure is off, all of a sudden they don't have the same wherewithal. You see people who, like, under great duress, they're totally in control, and then they burn dinner and they're freaking out. Right? That happens. So this is another test. Abraham comes back and he sees Sarah dies. Not only that, he was told the land of Israel would be his, and he can't even find a place to bury her. He has to go and find this person and go and to talk and to try to get this guy Ephron Achiti to give him a plot of land to go and to bury Sarah. And the whole negotiation, he ends up paying top dollar for it. But that was part of Abraham's success here. There was a certain level of, from the work, and you have to understand this, and you guys asked this before, and Tony asked before, Abraham was called the great philosopher. He found God through his mind. Understand that. He was not born into the tradition. There were righteous people always, in time of Abraham also, from Adam to Seth, Shem, Noah, Shem, Aver. There were small group of righteous people. Abraham was not there. He was in a place called Ur-Kasdim in Mesopotamia. His father was an idolater, and he understood God through his mind. That's how he got there. And then he went even to the deepest levels. Okay? Fascinating and amazing. Okay, very good. So Ephron cheats him. Yes, Ephron does cheat him. Now let me, what the Cole is bringing up, let me Shalom from Statesboro, Georgia. Ah, very good, beautiful. Good. I have a friend who's got a farm in Statesboro. Kelly, if I'm ever out there, I'd love to meet you. So Cole has pointed out here that Ephron lost the vav for his name for cheating him. Right, that's correct. Let's talk about Ephron a second. Let me explain something here, because it'll be a little bit political, but it's not the politics. I'm not the politics. I'm into truth, and you have to understand certain things about the way the world is, because it's there are deep processes happening here. Abraham paid top dollar, and as Cole pointed out, and as far as Ephron, it says he said a lot. I'll do this. You're my friend, student price, you're my friend, all this stuff. If you've ever been to the markets, you know how these things work. And then at the end, Abraham gives him the top dollar and he takes it. Now, why was Abraham he was not going to take this free. He wanted to pay top dollar. Why? Because there's certain places in the world that the Jewish people made sure, even before they came into the land of Israel, from Egypt when they came in with Joshua, before that the forefathers already purchased them with top dollar. Okay, there are various places. Okay, Abraham purchased Hebron, the Maras Machpelah, the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs. He purchased that with top dollar because he wanted that to be a central place. David, which was later, but David, when he purchased the place of Jerusalem from Arvona, he purchased that. Shechem, it says that Jacob purchased that. Okay, and there were these are very central places. Let me talk for a moment about the place that Abraham purchased, called the Cave of the Patriarchs, and let's connect it a second with the place that David bought many years later, Jerusalem, the place of Temple Mount, which is the place that Abraham offered Isaac. It's the place where the world began from. It's the place where Jacob has his dream of the ladder, and it's the place where the temple stood, and the Holy of Holies in that spot. And David made sure to pay top dollar to purchase that. Abraham buys this cave of the patriarchs. Now, how did he decide he was going to buy it, and where did he buy it, and how did he know about it? Because from the text, he says, okay, I want to buy this. Why did he decide that was the place? So the answer is that if you remember the story we talked about last time, when Abraham brings in the three guests who he doesn't know are angels, he brings them in and he wants to bring them, feed them. There's a calf that he wants to slaughter to bring them food, to feed them. The calf runs away and he runs after it. And it goes into a cave. And when he gets into that cave, he realizes where he is. He realizes he's in a very special place. He realizes he's been shown the place where Adam and Eve are buried. And that is the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs. That is why he purchased it. He realizes this is a special place. The wisdom is endless, but just to give you some ideas here. The word Chevron is from the word chibur. Chibur is connection. Okay, it's a connection. And what happened was that there are two places in the world that sort of are sister places. One is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem that David ends up buying, where the temple is. And then the second one is the cave of the patriarchs in Hebron. And what happens is that there are two different qualities. The quality of the temple, it says it's the place, Har Hashem Yera'eh. In the mountain of God, he will be seen. He will have awe of him. Jerusalem is the place when the temple stood that we would go and we would be seen and we would see also. We would come out with divine understanding. As I've mentioned to you before, people don't realize it. The sages tell us that if the nations of the world understood what the temple provided for them, not only would they never have destroyed it, which was destroyed by the Babylonians and the Romans, they put 24-hour guards to protect it. In the time of Solomon, there was no natural disasters. There was no famine. The blessing came from the place of the temple. It's called fire. Okay, fire. I don't want to get into this. It's a little mystical now, but there's a concept of different energies in the world. There's fire, there's earth, wind, water, and fire. That's a real concept, not in the physical sense. So not elements, obviously. That's not what it is. But in the deeper sense, they represent deeper ideas. And there are 4 holy cities in Israel, representing earth, wind, water, and fire. The city of water is called Tiberias. Okay, the city of air is called Tzfat. The holy city. The Kabbalists came back to Tzfat in the 1500s and rebuilt the holy city of Tzfat. And then the city of Jerusalem is fire. And it says it was destroyed in fire and rebuilt in fire. Jerusalem is very intense. The city of Hebron is earth. And it's a fascinating thing if you think about it. The word Ephron, it means afar, means earth. The person that David bought Jerusalem for, his name is Arvana, which is orb, which means fire. That's another deeper concept here. But the two cities are in parallel. The connection of Hebron is that Abraham understood that he needed the place that we were connected no matter what, could never be destroyed. It's a cave inside a cave inside a cave, in the deepest place that there's a connection. It's an internal connection. And although Jerusalem was destroyed, and it will be rebuilt, and it is being rebuilt as we speak right now, those who have been there and those who want to come join us in our trip in July, please send me an email. But Jerusalem is you could see it's happening. It is being rebuilt before our eyes. And what happens is that the fire is an element that is the most dynamic, but it also can be changed. It can be put out. Earth is an element that you can't. What can you do with it? It's earth. You can't destroy it. It's still earth. And so, therefore, Hebron and Jerusalem are two connected parts. One day, again, the clear light of Jerusalem will shine, and the light will go out to everyone, and everyone will see. And the connection, the chibur of Hebron, the connection of Hebron is always there as the matriarchs and patriarchs are buried and connected into this place that is the holy spot of the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs, called the Maras Machpelah. And it's the word, the Mara is a cave inside a cave. It's a deep connection that can never be broken. Okay, so that's the idea. So David goes, so Abraham goes and he purchases this, as Cole said, from Ephron, who tries to rip him off, and he takes top dollar, but that's okay. We can't have this place being contested. which if you look at history, doesn't really make much of a difference, because all the people who want to in a certain sense distort history, they distort it. People, there was no David and Solomon. Right? You find artifacts. And you find artifacts in the temple on a daily basis in the area of thousands of years of Jewish life there. Okay, very good. So now he goes and he buys the cave, the Maras Machpelah, and he buries Sarah in the cave of Maras Machpelah. Fine. Now Abraham has to do something, because if he would have brought Isaac as an offering, then there would be no continuity of the Jewish people. He understands that now is the time that he has to go and marry off Isaac, Yitzchak, to his soulmate, and thereby extend the continuity of the holy nation. So he takes his trusted servant Eliezer, and he makes him swear. He says, I want you to go back to my hometown, to where I come from, and I want you to go and I want you to find a soulmate for Isaac. Okay? But you can't bring Isaac there. You got to go to the place. Don't take from the Canaanites that he lived amongst them. They were very corrupt. Go to my hometown and find the wife. So he goes. And he does something very, very strange in the text. He does something that would seemingly be forbidden. Something called nichush. Nichush is we are very much against superstitious things. If this happens and that's forbidden. Can't go and live like that. We have to be pure with God. So, and apparently, what he does is Eliezer goes he goes with his 10 camels and his other men, and he goes to the city of Nahor, Abraham's brother, and then what happens is he gets to the well, to the place where the water is, and he kind of makes a deal with God. He says, "Okay, I've arrived today at the spring, And the woman that comes out, and I say, can I have a drink? And she says, yeah, I'll give you a drink. I'll give you a camel's drink too. That's the one. That's the chosen one. I mean, it's like weird. We don't do that stuff. How come Eliezer did not transgress the problem of superstition, of just making stuff up? Like, what happened if the person came out was not good? What does that mean? So we have some questions. Least superstitious person you'll ever meet. Who's that? Eliezer? I don't know who that is, but good. Whoever's not superstitious, that's great. That's the way we're supposed to be. Pure with Hashem. Pure with God. So how did Eliezer do that? Well, like, how did he do that? He shouldn't have done that. Anyone have any idea? That's what Judah did for me. Made you not superstitious? That's great. That's fantastic. You should not be superstitious, because superstition is based on the idea that the world's out of control. And there's random things. And there's this power, that power. There's not. There's one power of the world who directs the whole world. Okay? So what was Eliezer thinking? So the answer is like this. And this is important in our lives. A person should not go and say, oh, I saw a sign, a black cat walked by. That's completely forbidden. You don't do that. But there's sometimes you go and you try to see and read the signs how God's involved in your life. For example, let's say you've tried to do something once, twice, 3 times, and every time you try, it doesn't go. So at that point, that may be a sign. Now, you shouldn't just say, well, do the right thing, I'm not going to do it. But it may give you pause to go and to use your logic and say, maybe I should be thinking about this thing differently. So if you're using your mind and your logic to approach something, then it is a skill and a connection to be able to try to read how God's communicating with us. That's okay. But you can't just make stuff up. You have to follow the system we have, the wisdom that we have, the Torah, to do what's right, and then to see how God's involved in our lives. What was Eliezer really saying? Here's what Eliezer was saying. Eliezer was a big, strong guy. According to sages, he was the leading fighter in the war that Abraham took against the 4 kings. He was a powerful guy. He had 10 camels with him. But Rivka was a little girl. She was a young girl. If you met a big person and he said, "Listen, can I have a drink? Pour me a drink and pour my." And would you say, yeah, I'll give you a drink. I'll give you camels too. You'd say, yeah, go ahead. Here, here's the jug. Take a sip and give you camels. She didn't do that. Why? Because her approach was she wanted to do kindness. And therefore Eliezer was looking for the sign of the person that fit exactly for Isaac. It was going to be the person of tremendous kindness. It was the young girl who could have said, you could feed yourself, you could give yourself a drink, you can give your camels a drink, but she wanted to do it. And that's why in the text, if you read it, it keeps saying, quickly, quickly, quickly. She was doing it. Because when you don't want to do something, you drag your feet. When you want to do it, you do it quickly. She wanted to do kindness. And that he knew was the source of who would be the right soulmate for Isaac. Okay? That's exactly what it was. All right? And this, I'm going to end with this, and we'll pick it up next time. If you have any questions, you can start writing them down. So I'll take some questions at the end. But if I missed any. But I want you to understand, Isaac, as we talked about last time, is going to take a very different approach than Abraham. Abraham's approach was all giving. He was kindness. And he got 10 tests of difficulty with saying no until he became perfectly balanced. Isaac's going to take the exact opposite approach. He is what's called judgment, restriction, self-evaluation, analysis, control of himself. And therefore, Isaac's soulmate, they understood, was going to be the person who was also a tremendous giver. It was going to be the balance to him. Okay? And that was going to be Rivka. And we'll see next week what happens. And we'll see next week also how Isaac, Yitzhak, becomes a whole shalem person, a person of completeness. Even though we all start from different perspectives, we have to become whole in the end. And that's what's going to happen. Eliezer goes and he realizes right away that after the story that he realizes Rebecca is the right one. He gives her the jewelry. The jewelry was all signs about the future of the Jewish people, 10 Commandments and bracelets, all those signs. And then afterwards, he's going to go back to the family and ask to bring her back. The family kind of first says yes, then try to hem and haw, they try to get out of it. In the end, he does bring her back and brings her as the soulmate for Yitzchak. And next week we'll see Isaac and Rivka, how they build the next phase of the development of the matriarchs and patriarchs to lead to the nation and to the that has to go and to represent God in the world, which we're all doing here together, trying to really understand the mission that we have to do in the world, which is really to as everyone in the world. The Jewish people have a function. Noachides, everyone has a function to go and to be able to go and to make this the place of God's presence will reside. Okay, any questions, comments, thoughts on what we said? Okay, thank you. Good Shabbos, great. Exactly, did I miss anything? All right, very good. All right, guys, if you have any questions, send them in, and you can send them in also during the week, and you can Facebook me if you want, and I will get them. You can email rabbiingber@gmail.com, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. We will hopefully get out some information this week about the summer trip. I don't know if Rabbi Goldberg is watching there in Israel. If he is right now, well, I will get all that information out next week. It was a very busy time with Passover, and I had to get out of Egypt, and we got out, and I'm very thrilled about that. Got out of Egypt again, managed to get out of the boundaries that limit us, and now we're sharing great ideas of Torah, and we're moving towards, as we're going to see in the time ideas, I'll cover this in a little bit in some of the short videos I'll be sending out starting next week, that we're moving from a time of Passover to the time of getting the Torah in Shavuot, which is this period of time right now, and we're going to share more ideas from the Torah next Thursday night at 8:30. All right, all the best, guys. Bye. Peace, everyone.